This is our second meeting of the school year, right?
First meeting of the school year.
Of the actual school year, but since we come back from the summer, it's our second meeting. So, welcome to the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education special meeting for September 13th, 2016. Please take the roll.
Barry?
Yes, present.
Marzen?
Present.
Charlot, present. Gottschall?
Present.
Peg?
Present.
Hood?
Present.
Ryder?
Present.
All present. We have quorum. We can begin. We're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then we begin, as we always do, with the opportunity for public comment, and I believe we actually have a formal request for public comment, which we've never had. So we have members of the Kiwanis Club of Lake Bluff, Mr. Lee, and somebody else with you, Mr. Reddick, please come on up. And if you could, for the record, just state your names and your addresses, and then.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Redding, and I live here in Lake Bluff. I have a just turned 9-year-old who's in 3rd grade, not over at the new beautiful school yet, and then I have 2 small daughters who are soon to be 3 and 5. So we love Lake Bluff, and I love being a part of Kiwanis. Thanks to David here, and we had a very successful campaign, and we're proud of what we raised, and couldn't be more excited to get it to a better group. So thanks for everything.
Thanks for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have the check tonight.
Oh.
So we have raised the $20,000.
Oh, you
Wow.
did.
Look
Look
at
at
that.
that. Very nicely done.
Our flag is going to be 3 times as big as this.
We need to build a bigger ramp now.
We're going to put that on the ramp.
We're going to put it right in front of the ramp, be a little good wall for it.
That's great.
This is, you can use that for the ramp.
No skateboarding allowed.
Yeah, so for public record, the Kiwanis raised $20,000, and it was specifically contributed to part of the school, to the ADA accessible ramp at the front of the building, right? And it's much appreciated. It's a tremendous effort, and we really appreciate what you've done for the schools. I don't know if you've seen the finished product yet, but the building came out.
How did you like your tour?
It was fabulous. It's transforming.
Yeah. If you had seen the old school and this, it's amazing the difference. It's truly amazing.
Thank you.
No. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
If anybody else would like to address the board, please do so now.
Take more checks.
Yeah. If not, I'm going to turn this over to our principals, who are going to introduce us to some new staff members. So from the elementary school, I'm having a little good embarrassing moment. Margaret Sinclair, I'm sorry, terrible.
Long summer.
And Nate Blackmer from middle school. She was already preoccupied, but it's on video.
Well, good evening. That is a tough act to follow. I don't have a giant check like the Ellen show, but I am very happy to introduce our new staff members. They already feel like they're members of our family at Lake Bluff Elementary School. We had a lot of hard work even before school started. So our new staff members were there working in their classrooms. They were even working on curriculum way before they were official employees of our district. So I want to welcome Michael Atkinson-Leone. He is our new social worker for our pre-K through 2nd grade. And he has been on the playground, in the cafeterias, in classrooms, getting to know our students. Anna Morris is our new reading specialist for grades 3 through 5. She's already teamed up with our reading specialist and our enrichment specialist to really plan some professional development for our teachers and getting to know students by leading the initiative in our new reading program with Lucy Calkins. And I have Naomi Bailey. She is our new Spanish teacher for grades K2. Again, as soon as she was hired, she was asking when she could be in our classroom. She even met with our former Spanish teacher who left to a different type of position and has been working really hard even before school started. So we welcome our new staff to Lake Bluff High.
We have 3 new teachers from Lake Bluff Middle School that are here tonight. Sarah Haslow is one of our new, is our new special education teacher. She has the unique experience of having a classroom that looks out the very same windows that she was looking out as she was interviewing for the position. It's no longer my office, it's now her classroom. So that's kind of a cool thing. We have also Karina Huddleston, who will be teaching 7th and 8th grade language arts. Karina is actually returning after having some time away teaching in another district and loved being in Lake Bluff so much that she jumped at the opportunity to come back, and we're thrilled to have her. So thank you, Karina. And we have Brooke McKean. Brooke McKean is our 8th grade social studies teacher and also our new field hockey coach. She's jumped right in with both feet and actually has 2 young kids and was one of those who will be walking to school and also a future user of our school system. So we appreciate that. Thank you, all 3 of you, for being part of our school newly renovated. They're enjoying their new spaces.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think I would like to recommend to our board president that our new teachers, they all look a little tired to me. So they might need to go home and get some sleep for the new school day tomorrow.
Do what you need to do.
So you guys are more than welcome to go ahead and go home and get your homework done.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And if it's okay with the rest of the board, it's been suggested that we take item 7C, which is the middle school construction update, and move it to the top so you guys can do your thing and get out of here. So I'd like to introduce Tom Carano from IHC, our construction manager, and Craig Sipka from Light Architects to give us a bit of a summary and wrap up, perhaps a wrap up of the middle school project.
Well, thank you. I think about 8 months ago when we were hashing out budgets and how we were going to, how the board and the district was going to pay for it, we embarked on this journey, and with great pleasure on August 31st, we received occupancy from the ROE so that the school could open. We had a lot of unforeseen issues that kind of created challenges through the summer with some additional abatement and mitigation, but the project turned out wonderful, on time, and under budget. And we are now working through the punch list items. Contractors have been coming evenings, weekends. We'll probably have about another month of that to do and to finalize everything. But one of the gratifying things was on September 6th when the school was open to the public and the parents and students came in. It was great to see their pleasure with the school, even tears in some of their eyes to see what was accomplished. So it was gratifying to see that, and hope that everyone enjoys that facility for years to come.
Thank you so much,
Tom, I'd like to also just give a shout out. Nobody in this community will know the difference, but your site superintendent, Wayne, deserves a tip of the hat and a pat on the back for an incredible job. I've heard so many stories from Gene, how he's kept the project moving and worked wonders on the site and put in countless hours. So just tremendous thanks to him. And
I will pass it along. I've worked with Wayne on a number of projects, and he is dedicated like no one I've ever come across before. He takes it seriously, and he truly works for the interest of the owner. Yep. And a lot of that success is owed to Wayne.
And it's your whole team. I mean,
Well, thank you, and we appreciate that. But as I've touted Wayne always, he makes my job easier.
Well, y'all did a great job. It
Yeah,
was
that's great.
fantastic, and as you said, under budget and on time. That's terrific. So thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to add at the beginning, and I've been through a number of similar projects in my other career, my business career, so I know how difficult the process is. And in the beginning, I had my doubts about whether we could come in. So you are to be congratulated. The building looks fantastic. I've heard from several parents this past week that's jaw dropping when they walk in. That's great. And the two of you have done a fantastic job, and I'd like to publicly acknowledge that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And I just have to say, as a parent, I hear, I get a lot of feedback from friends, and I remember seeing you in the building, the first day that kids were in there, so you saw their happy faces too. People are really amazed at the job that was done, but I've gotten so many compliments on how the school looks, on how we got it done in the time frame that was promised, and today I had a compliment about just the work habits, that it was cleaned up really quickly when the work was done. The plannings looked great, it just well managed, so I just want to pass that along and say thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And tell them the video of this meeting for your company resume will be available.
Yeah, I have my review in April, so.
Have them call us. Have them call us.
Proof. Craig?
It's my turn.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a lot less coherent because before this meeting I got to meet Ryan Sandberg. And I am on cloud nine, okay? So I'm just letting you know right now. Yeah, that was, I'm never washing this hand again. Right now. That was just,
He lives in town now.
Yeah,
I know. And Rhino, if you're listening, I publicly apologize for anything I said because I have no idea what it was. But mine are going to be maybe a little less quantifiable, but a couple of things that I do want to address the board with maybe a couple short abbreviated stories. And the first one is that in my career there are certain projects that quite frankly that you never forget, and not just because of how they turned out, but because of how you went about and you were able to do them with the people that you were able to do them with. And I, with all sincerity, can tell you that this is one of those projects for me. It is one of those things I will never forget. And we are pleased at how it turned out. Unlike you, I had no doubts that Tom and his crew were going to get this done. We've done it before, and I had every confidence, especially when Dr. Sophie said that they were going to be the construction manager, that we were going to get it done. So thank you, Tom, for executing it. I know it wasn't easy. A lot of tough conversations, like I said we were going to have. That happens in these projects, but they all came to I think a very good conclusion. But getting it done, not just with Tom, but with the number of people that were involved. And this is not a typical project from the standpoint of who was involved and how many conversations we had. But I think it is a poster child for how it should be done. And that is reaching out to the community the number of times that we did. And during the course of design and even during construction, when there were regular meetings and postings on your website, keeping everybody informed. There's nothing like information, and being able to share and spread information on a project like this that is so important for a community, as it should be, is important. That helps things go smoothly, it helps people feel at ease that things are going to get done, and by all accounts, it sounds like that actually happened. Now, that happens because of vision, desire, and really kind of this collaborative spirit that we try to encourage in our kids. And when all those kind of things come together, poof, you sometimes get magic with a little bit of luck. And again, this is one of those projects. So I think a lot goes to the stewardship that all of you have presented and have conducted yourself in during this process and this project. And I have to give a big shout out to Dr. Sophie because without her vision, certainly none of that is going to happen. For all of you, so that you understand, the seeds of this project were laid maybe 20 years ago when Dr. Sophie and I first started kind of cutting our teeth together on our respective jobs, and we got introduced to each other. Never really got a chance to work together until from that point until now, but we stayed in contact, and we done good. And when I say we, I mean all of us. I comfortably say that. The other part is what Tom had reiterated, and I've been doing schools for 25 years. And I got to tell you, on opening day, I'm not talking Cubs, although I really would like to. But on opening day when those kids came in, and you see the wide eyes, their big grins, this is awesome! And the fact that kids are actually happy to go to school, I'm telling you what, it doesn't get any better than that, except shaking Wayne Sandberg's hand. Yes. That was really awesome too. So, anyhow, it makes everything that we've gone through, everything that we've done worthwhile, and it's kind of just a special feeling that I wish all of you could experience at one time or another in your career. And maybe you have, being board members, but we do this for kids, and to see that on their faces, and I hope now the hard part comes, Nate, because you have to use the building the way we talked about and the way you had envisioned, and so that's the hard part. Because change is difficult, and there are a lot of great things, 21st century things that are happening in the building now, and there's reactions and ways that the kids are going to be probably evolving and changing with the teachers that we can't even predict right now because of some of the things that have gone on and we've done to that school. So use it well, enjoy it, have some fun, and thank you for inviting us here, because this has been really great.
One of the little story I wanted to share that I didn't see it firsthand, maybe Dr. Sobey can elaborate, but I think one of the highest forms of compliment that you can receive is our village president, who in many ways feels like she owns the town and can stake a claim to a lot of it. She took a tour of the building and heard that she got kind of choked up and had to catch her breath and sit down. So that, trust me, that's a very high form of praise when it comes from her. So she used to be the principal there, so she deep ties to that. So thank you very much. I also want to draw attention so the community knows and everybody is clearly aware that if it wasn't for the countless hours that Dr. Sobey put in on this over the summer, this never would have happened. She was there like almost every day talking to Wayne and making sure the problems got resolved and pushing forward. And at the end, there was a lot of headaches that she didn't share the details with everybody here. But I heard some stories that she got a few more gray hairs. And
I have to tell you, I share that with Nate because Nate was there all the times except for the time they delivered the really bad news in August. And then I couldn't reach him because he was in Canada.
But people need to know, if it wasn't for you guys, the amount of hours you put in, that wouldn't have come together. So thank you very much for all your hard work.
It was worth it.
Great project. It looks wonderful. And we're going to be talking at some point tonight, when we talk about adding a discussion item about opening the building up for tours to the community. We got to have a little bit of conversation about that. So thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Thank you, guys.
Can
I talk about that real quick?
Yeah, I forgot to ask her that. So we always ask if anybody wants to add an agenda item for a future or a discussion item for tonight. And the discussion item, we need to have a little chat about tours for the public for the building. But if anybody wants to add an agenda item for a future meeting, please do so as well.
I would. One of the things that I think we're going to do to start out is in reviewing the calendar, and Nate, I have to clear this date with you, but I looked at the calendar. October 11th is before the committee of the whole meeting. And I was thinking it might be nice to do an open house, maybe 5:30 to 6:30 or 6 to 7, so that you guys could come and be open to the community, and then we could come over and have our board meeting. We thought that would be one good time. But since we're going to do it that day, we really didn't have anything going on in the morning that day, and possibly an open house in the morning too, from 9:30 to 10:30, or we'd have to go around the lunch hour.
Will there be snacks?
There will not be snacks because we don't want food all over the building.
Oh, you're gonna get a lot more people if you offer snacks.
We'll talk about it. Mr. Berry.
Outside. Coffee outside.
We're really on a budget, and that is not we're all learning to say is that in the budget, and that is not in the budget. So we'll talk about it though.
That's the way there's a certain demographic in this community that responds to snacks.
They also respect the budget. So, yeah.
All right.
So that's the update for as far as our
Yeah, that's
first
okay.
community.
So you'll work that out
Yeah.
with staff and then get in touch with us, and we'll publicize the heck out of it.
Mhm.
Great. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our discussion item A1, which is a board goal 1 update, and Dr. Rubenstein is going to update us on that.
While he is getting set to come up and talk to you about this, I do want to update you that in October you're going to be hearing board goal 2, 3, and 4 updates. And what you're going to find out is that even though the plan goes 2 more years, we've accomplished all our goals. One of them we're still really working on, and that's the personalized learning. But the bottom line is that it's time to start thinking about what we're going to do for our next strategic plan. So that will need to be a board discussion as to when we're going to do that and how we're going to do that. So kind of look forward to that in October. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin, who's going to give us our board goal 1 map report tonight.
Thank you. It is much easier to be up here talking about student achievement than about the budget.
Question.
I am here to just talk a little bit about board goal 1, which has to do with performance of all students, and we really use NWEA MAP scores to measure our progress in growth in that goal area. So we want to provide you guys with an understanding about how our students performed during the last school year. So all of these reports are from the last school year, not anything current. The students have not taken the MAP test yet this school year. So we've talked about this before, but just a little bit of vocabulary. So NWEA is the group that administers the assessment. It's the Northwest Evaluation Association, measures of academic progress. And RIT is an equal interval scale. And so it's just like a yardstick, and you'll see that in just a second, but just a little bit of vocabulary there. A little bit about the assessment. It is independent of grade level. If you take it in 3rd grade, the ceiling is not in 3rd grade necessarily, and you can still get lower grade items if that's where you're at. And then it's all Common Core aligned. This year, for the first time, we're going to be administering it to all students in grades 2 through 8, just in the fall and spring. The only exceptions to that rule will be our 6th grade students who will also take it in winter because of math placement. And then any student who's on an IEP or who's receiving response to intervention services. So it's administered all online. It's in a computerized system, and like I said before, it's measured in a point called a RIT point. And so those are an equal interval scale. So it's an adaptive assessment, which is really nice. It starts out, if it's the first time that a student has taken the assessment, it starts out at their at the 50th percentile of their grade level. So if I'm talking about a 4th grade student, it starts out right at the 50th percentile. If they get that question correct, it gets a little bit more challenging. If they get it incorrect, it gets a little bit easier until it gets to the point where they're getting approximately 50% of the questions correct. That's the goal. And so for many of our more academically talented students, that could be the first time that they're facing an assessment that is really that rigorous. So just about the RIT scale, it's an achievement scale. It's really highly accurate. It's an equal interval scale, and it helps to measure growth over time. So we know that just as we would measure ourselves in inches, feet and inches, We do the same thing with RIT scores so that we can have an equal interval scale and talk about that over time. And it has the same meaning regardless of grade or age of the student. So a 232 in 3rd grade is going to mean the same thing that it does in 5th grade and in 8th grade. It's about what learning has actually occurred at that 232 RIT band. So since the fall of 2013, we've done a lot of training with our teachers, and all of that is outlined in the packet, and we continue to do that training as more and more teachers come in. We provide them with a lot of that background and training. There's always more to do. And then MAP also has some user group meetings in the area that I attend and will be inviting Kelly to as the year goes on. So just some quick results. I always think that these are always sort of exciting and stunning at the same time to look at the mean RIT score for our math scores over the last school year. So these are our spring scores, and you can see that the lowest we did was still at the 67th percentile nationally. So our average student is performing at the 67th percentile nationally, and all the way up to in 8th grade in math, where our average student is performing at the 90th percentile nationally. So when our parents and families talk with us about why don't we use a different measure, why don't we use something else along these lines, it's really because this gives us great data and helps us to understand exactly where kids are falling along the place level. So, and when we look certainly at those upper grades at the 83rd, 76th, 83rd, 90th percentile, in most other districts, those would be students who would be considered for gifted identification or at least some sort of acceleration.
I know this isn't the time for detailed questions, but at some point it'd be interesting to understand why the drop off between 3rd and 4th comes back into 5th, and then the drop off between 5th and 6th. Presumably it's the same kids moving into the next grade level. So
Kevin, that might be a good time to talk about it when you talk about park scores, because they're gonna see the same thing.
Yes.
The data kind of shows that, so that might be a good time to talk about that, because
Absolutely.
there are reasons for that.
Yep.
Well, and I remember that at one time, didn't we add to staff for that gap that happened going into 6th grade? It seemed to me like we hired additional specialists.
That would have been my
Staff.
first year here, because we have a part-time math at the middle school that helps with that gap. But there are other factors that play in, and you're going to see it with Park also, so that would be a good time to get into it at that point.
But all in all, like I said, in most other districts, if you had scores like this, we would be looking at these students for gifted and talented and acceleration, and these are our average students. The flip side of that is that if your average student is at the 83rd percentile, it makes a student who is at the 50th percentile look significantly discrepant when actually they're just really average nationally. And so that's a little bit of a danger there for us to remember and that we talk with our teachers about. In reading, sort of similar scores along the way, though nothing as high as the 90th percentile, so still some pretty solid scores along the way, ranging from the 66th percentile to the 81st percentile, nationally all the way in 8th grade, so really much to be proud of.
would you expect, if the same kid were here 2nd through 8th, would you expect that percentile would gradually go up, given whatever we're implementing works, so that by the 8th grade you're higher than more certainly at the 2nd grade?
Yep, and actually I'm going to get to that in the next couple of slides. You as always are 2 steps ahead of me, and so so as we talk about just the performance of students overall here in the district, and I will come back to that question, John. The district average was right there in the I think it was the 75th percentile for reading, and then the 78th percentile nationally for math. And so really just solid scores nationally when compared with the national comparison group. lot to be proud of. And as we look at the growth there, this is where we would answer that question, John. If I had started in second grade and I was progressing along at that natural rate, then I would expect that if I started at the 70th percentile, then I would consistently be at the 70th percentile as I grew up.
What's on the x-axis here? What is this? What is it measuring?
The x-axis is the RIT growth.
So
That's
2,
the
4,
RIT.
6.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So is the RIT growth, and so and on the y-axis is the grade level, and so you can see for math, it's not a perfect science, but for the most part, our students, as we project out their scores, they are outperforming them, and it really gets to be a more perfect graph when we actually look at reading. So if I started in second grade in this district, I would expect that I would, and I was at the 70th percentile in second grade, I would expect that if we did nothing different in our programs with that student, then by the time I got to 8th grade, I would still be at the 70th percentile. But the thing that we know is that we are doing some things different every year because we use these data and we try to change up our programs and we try to really tailor the learning to the needs of the students. And so we hope and have seen actually that students progress far beyond where we would expect them to be. So in 3rd grade, when we thought that they were going to grow by 11 points, the average student grew by 14 points. And so that is really quite exciting. Did that answer your question, Jen?
More or less, and I have a lot of others, but I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Is there a kind of a dirty question on the RIT scale, the averages and projected versus actual? Is there a statistical range around beyond which those are not really different? Like just for example, 6th grade, a 6 versus a 5, or are those statistically different?
They are considered statistically different because it's such a sensitive scale. I don't think that when it comes to second grade, that 15.3 to the 15.2, I don't think that makes that much of a difference. But MAP has standard error measure and then a couple of other different scores that it gives to each of the students and to the grade level as a whole that as we dig down deeper into the data, we're able to see all that. So, absolutely.
It also seems to me that we're already in the 90th percentile with math, that the growth would be less in math because we're already there. We don't have much further to go than it is in reading, but just the opposite is taking place here.
Well, and so we really try, like I said, so what happens oftentimes is that because of the way that our math program is structured, we will often see a big sort of increase in the 7th and 8th grade. And our 6th grade, we may see some trail off just because of the way that our math program is structured. And you'll see that when we talk about the PARCC scores in another month, about the reason for that is. So the big sort of bang for the buck of the way that our math program is structured is in the 7th and 8th grade. And so when we hit those big growth scores in 8th grade, it's because of what we've done in the 5th and 6th grade to get us there.
But if you were at 100%, there wouldn't be, the bottom number would be 0, right?
If we were at the 99th percentile, no, not necessarily.
Would there still be room for growth?
There could still be room for growth.
1%.
No, that's 99th percentile nationally. So students can still grow. They can still grow within that range. So technically, the RIT scale is an unlimited, it's a ceilingless scale. So like the highest I think that we've ever had was at 307. So there's always room for a kid to grow within that, and that's why we continue to give that assessment.
Okay.
So
Do you happen to have those charts collapsed down for the total district? Just one projected versus actual?
I don't in this presentation, but I could get that for you.
Just curious.
Yep, I could certainly get that for you. So just some key takeaways. I will say that not only with this map data, but when we work with ECRA in using these data, it really is easy to use. It's easy for our teachers to understand. I have talked with several of our colleagues in other districts about using their map data and about what that looks like, and just the robustness of the whole project really makes it a wise data tool for us. And then students in all grades are consistently performing well above national averages, which is great, and national comparison groups, and our growth is steady across grade levels, though I would still say more work is needed in math, because in a perfect world, we would have kind of a perfect angle right there, and we don't quite have that yet. So,
Kevin, do we know how we compare to our other comparator schools? I mean, the national average is one thing, but what about Lake Forest, for example?
I know sort of off the cuff, like in informal conversations about what their growth looks like.
But we will be talking about the comparables when we talk about park scores next month.
Because they don't publish the map data.
Right.
They don't.
Do
So we
they
don't
share
have
it with you?
It's not something that we've ever sort of talked about sharing formally, just because of the fact that that's not really what we use the tool for.
Right.
We use the tool for driving our own instruction for improvement, and we use the park data for comparing apples to apples, because everybody takes that assessment.
Thing I didn't see here that I wonder, just your opinion. I guess my first question is your opinion on the value of the change over time. I don't see any statistics compared to last year or trend. And I'm wondering, one, do you think that's a valuable measure? And two, if you do or don't, how, or could you elaborate?
This presentation could very easily be an hour long with all that information. And we have all that information, and I would be happy to put together a more comprehensive report, honestly. What we wanted to provide for you this evening was kind of a brief and broad overview of this. But as each year, the value of being here over time is that as we put together year after year after year of data and growth, we know that our students are progressing in all subgroups at a really steady rate, in a really positive way. And the MAP scores, when I went to put these scores into the template this year, overwhelmingly they were up. By some of them as much as 3 or 4 rate points. So,
I think the significant piece that Kevin said here too is what we use it for. MAP scores we really use internally to drive our instruction and change our instruction. Some of the information you're looking for is going to naturally fall through in our October presentation of park scores, our comparables, our scores over time, all of that.
I just want to confirm an observation here. So the Northwestern group then kind of helps you with this data when you identify gaps or areas or classes that maybe could use extra help in area to help curriculum design. Is that?
So
I'm just trying to make a link here.
So a little bit about what we do. So students who are performing one standard deviation above the mean, we look at for some sort of gifted and talented acceleration or some other enrichment program. And so Northwestern works with us on that. And then also students who are 2 standard deviations above the mean. And we have a very, very small number, but that number grows every year. And then the group that we primarily work with this data on is ECRA, whose contract we renewed in May.
Right.
So, and ECRA is really fantastic. So one of the things, for example, that we did with them is that we had them run a statistical significance of school absences versus the MAP data of the time. So does it make a difference in your MAP score based on the number of school absences, and it turns out that it does. So,
But I think to get to Phil's,
No.
the map data is reviewed, and that data is, they actually sit down as a team and look at the students that are either that 1 standard deviation or 2 standard deviations. And Northwestern helps our team work on different modifications to the curriculum, or different, in some cases, accelerations for our students. So
Right.
yes, this data is all used.
How about the other end of the scale for RTI? Is it used identification
absolutely,
for sex?
RTI and special education identification.
And can you use it to evaluate grade level performance or teacher by classroom if you chose to do that too?
This is part of the measure that the Para Joint Committee actually chose as the growth measure in their teacher evaluations.
Good.
Beginning this year.
Kevin, as a parent, when parents get their students' scores, what are they looking for to say my student is progressing? I mean, I read the report, but if you can distill it, what one measure would you look at?
I would say that I do not get concerned if from season to season they're not growing, because I think that is actually, a student can have one bad day. It happens from time to time. What we look for is the overall trend in their data. Is that trend line trending up? Is it remaining fairly steady, or is it in some cases trending downwards? And are there some things that we need to look at there? I think that sometimes what parents get concerned about is when when they believe that one assessment day is going to make the biggest difference in their child's life. And I can tell you that in no situation in this district do we use just one measure to determine any sort of gifted and talented placement, special education placement, anything along those lines. So if I were a parent, I would be looking for that overall trend line. Is it trending up? And also having that conversation with my child. Hey, what did you think of this assessment? And what was that like? And what sorts of questions did you have? And were there questions that were hard or easy or challenging or what have you? So,
Okay, thanks.
thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Orlison? Okay, thank you. Don't go anywhere.
Don't go anywhere. Do you have your hand out to go through the enrollment?
I don't, but
Oh, you can go get it if you
no. I will tell you that enrollment is up. And Shelley pulls that up. We saw where there are a lot of great things happening at both schools in terms of enrollment. At the elementary school, we're at one of the highest enrollments I think that we've ever had in that building. And then at the middle school, certainly trending upward. Over the last 2 years, we've increased enrollment. So since the 14-15 school year, our enrollment has increased by about 4.5%, which in talking just again informally with colleagues in Lake Forest and other areas, they're not seeing the same trend. So really, really positive news for us. These numbers have changed ever so slightly. We have a new second grader starting and a new third grader, so the numbers are going up by 2. But other than that, the numbers are really exciting to look at and a lot to be proud of. The housing market certainly picked up, and the smallest class was the kindergarten class this year. I should say second smallest class. We've always had that small 4th grade class, but the kindergarten class ended up being a little bit smaller than we had targeted, but I have a feeling that that will be the last year.
We had 130 kids in 8th grade.
So, any questions?
If you go back and look at, I've got data that goes back 10 years. We didn't include PK in those.
We did not, but even if you pull pre-K out,
Right.
we're still growing in the other.
But in order to be
ones.
comparable, you'd have to pull that out. Okay.
One thing that I always look for when I see those numbers is how we're doing on class sizes, because those numbers, yes, we have increases, but it's not even across every classroom, right? It looked great, but I did notice that at the middle school we have a couple places where we've got like 27 kids in the classroom. And I was curious how that compares with where we want to be, or like, are we keeping an eye on? That seems like a lot, but I don't recall what our goal was.
Yeah, and that is something that we're keeping an eye on. That predominantly has to do with those world language classes. We have a full-time teacher teaching both 6th and 7th grade, which means we have 3 sections of Spanish offered in those two grade levels, and then the same in 8th grade. So for Spanish, only 3 classes that you can put kids into. For French, we have 1 French teacher for all 6 sections, which means only 2 classes that you can put each grade level worth of kids into. So that is something that we obviously look at. There was a time at the middle school that we had 3 full-time Spanish teachers. And that was something that we talked about back when we were looking at staffing. We're good for this year, but it'll be something to keep an eye on as if our numbers continue to grow.
Does anybody recall what the goal is for the middle school classrooms? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
The goal is typically, when we talked about it, and it's been a couple of years now at this point, was around 24.
Okay.
But we also acknowledge that some of the enrichment or the electives could be bigger. It just depended because of the way the scheduling goes. I do think as our numbers start going up, as the bubbles start moving through, we may need to look at more sections of foreign language, because that's where it seems to fall out because of the number of teachers that we have. For instance, French, we only have 1 teacher. And those teachers are really hard to come by.
Right.
So
The other variable from year to year is the number of students that would go into Algebra 1 in 7th grade. Do we have enough students that would support 2 full sections, or do we have only enough students to support 1 full section? And then you'll occasionally have your schedule built, and you'll have a couple of kids that come in from another district and will they qualify. So you built a section for 25, but you've added 3 or 4 more. So that's also kind of a year-to-year shift that we have to manage. Yeah, that is a.
And I know I'm aware it's kind of a juggling act when you have those 27 that are in, say, for example, a French class or Spanish. Then how you get them fit into science? I'm aware it's a jigsaw puzzle. So.
Right, because
I'm not criticizing the.
Sure, the LA. It's worth remembering that LA and math are blocked together in order to accommodate the 60 minutes a piece. They have to be blocked together across 3 periods, so that at the end of those 3 periods, they're back on the cycle with the 40-minute classes. So yeah, that's a further restriction of the schedule.
Yeah.
any other questions on enrollment?
Can I go back to the last topic real quick? I'm still just, these numbers are just go. In terms of analytics of data, would you say that the school district is more sophisticated than most? I mean, where just among school districts, I mean, where would we rate just in terms of peers that you talk to?
In terms of peers that I talk to, I think that we use data. We're in the probably top quartile.
So what would more sophistication look like, and what would it mean for learning and curriculum design?
More, it would involve.
Like, what would your dream be? Like, what more could we do?
Oh wow! So there are a couple of just the placement pieces with our students going to the high school is still not a scientific process, and it really needs to be. And that's something that we're again beginning that conversation with members of the high school team. We have all of the data that they would possibly need in order for our students to be appropriately placed at the high school, and they have not chosen to use it. And so we are, that would be the first place that we could start. And then after that, it would be working to create, you actually see districts that are doing some of that sort of data analytics with every single assessment that goes in there to look at why did Kelly's class do better than Kevin's class, and what were the things that went on in Kelly's class or didn't go on in Kevin's class, and what were the variables that impacted that. And there are some pretty sophisticated software systems that come along with that. So in a perfect world, that's what we would have.
So the first thing you brought up seems to me to be a really important one, because we're only a K through 8 district, and outcomes are really important. And so my question to Jean and you is, what can we as a board do to affect that? Because that seems really, really important.
I'll answer that.
So.
I think I can tell you I'm feeling that there's some positive things going on. Just today, as a matter of fact, I emailed the principal at the high school to set up a time for us to sit down with her and with the superintendent there to tour the building and to start having the conversations about certain departments meeting with our staff at the middle school. I'm feeling, and they invited me to a few meetings by the end of the year. Last year, as you remember, was Shayla's first year. I think as a board, because I heard you ask as a board, how can we impact that change? That might be a better, and I'm not shrugging it off on you, but I am. Mark meets regularly with their board presidents, and I think that board members to board members talk. They're always willing to work with us, but they have many different levels, and you're looking at our levels right in the room. All our levels are here. So it's much easier to impact change with the small team that we have. So I would, do you want to add anything to that, Mr. Beard?
I don't want to offend anybody at Lake Forest, but I've had lots of conversations about working with us, with our their administrators working more closely with our administrators, with their board presidents, 67 and 115. And there's not, I always get the sense that their priorities are in a different place than ours. They've got, like Jean said, they've got so many different layers of management. They have seem to have a lot more issues going on, and they're not at our level of sophistication yet. So when it comes to data analytics and the cutting edge stuff that we do in the classroom, so what I've encouraged Jean to do is when we run into obstacles in moving forward working with the high school, is to lead by example and to initiate changes in curriculum and in procedure. And on multiple occasions, they have seen the results of our initiatives and then said to us, oh, we should be doing what Lake Bluff is doing. So it's not an easy answer to what can we do to move those kinds of initiatives forward. I have that conversation monthly with both Lake Forest board presidents and struggle with it. And
we are doing more and more things. Kelly ran several professional development things with District 67 teachers and our teachers this summer.
As they see our successes, they seem to be more open to
our elementaries. I sent emails on getting our 4 meetings set up between 67 and us this year.
But in the meantime, it doesn't do anything for an 8th grader that goes in there as a freshman and sits for the first semester waiting for everyone else to catch up.
And I do hear that from parents
themselves, because I've heard plenty of stories about people not being placed well and then they're struggling too. And so I think it's a very good question you raised. I think it's beyond the scope of what we should be discussing here tonight. But to add a discussion item, I think that's a really good one. I'd like an overview of I've heard we're 25% of the high school. I don't know if that's true, but I'd like, what percentage are we? What efforts are being made? What can we do as board members, as parents, to try and make that a more seamless integration? Because they do have other priorities. They're more closely aligned. We are kind of the outlier by virtue of our size and our different townships. So I think that'd be a worthy topic for another board meeting.
So,
we will work on that.
Sorry to get us off on this track, but it seemed relevant. I mean, because at the end of the day, this all.
But it's probably a good thing to add for a future agenda item that we should probably make note of. We always do.
Well, and some of it we can't really cover. We would have to have somebody from Lake Forest come out, and I know for a fact Shayla would come out. I know she would.
Great idea, Jean.
Yeah, that'd be really nice.
Yeah, it would be.
Sorry, Shayla.
I mean, I think, as a board, we want to achieve those results, but we also want to satisfy our state government that we're working together. Because
And we're doing more, every year we do more and more things together, so.
All right.
Good.
Thank
No,
you.
that was
Hey, thanks for
good.
the-
Thanks, Kevin.
Other questions about MAP or about enrollment?
Yeah.
Not hearing it. All right, we're going to move on to item 8 in our action. Thank you for coming.
Mark them.
Tonight, to our action items.
We're in the next one.
And we are going to begin with action item 8A, which has to do with an item we spent quite a bit of time talking about in closed session, about a resolution directing employees to, us to direct an employee to submit to a medical exam. I don't think there's anything we can discuss about it in open, other than I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the resolution directing employee number 255275 to submit to a medical examination by a medical doctor of the Board of Education's choice per Board Policy 530.
So moved. Second.
We have a roll call vote on that.
Marvin,
Yes.
Charlotte, yes, Gotchall.
Yes.
Haig,
Yes.
Hood,
Yes.
Ryder,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes. Motion is approved. All right, item 8B, having to do with the memorandum of understanding between the Lake Bluff Teachers Council and on part-time teachers. And I'd like Jean to give us a brief summary of what this entails.
After we finished negotiations a year ago, during the course of last year, we determined that there was not enough language in the contract and some misunderstanding on how we treat part-time teachers. So it was agreed between our LBTC and our administration that we would sit down and figure out administratively how, what things you would turn timesheets in and what things are just part of your professional position. We met this summer. A couple members of the LBTC and Kevin, Jay, and I, we talked through the issues we'd had. Jay spent a considerable amount of time with Tom figuring out probably 25 different formulas so that we could talk about them. And what wound up happening is the memorandum of understanding that was developed and written by Terry Hodges based upon the notes that we gave her. The teachers union read through it, made a couple very minor changes. They voted on this Friday. I don't know the numbers, but I've heard that the vote wasn't even close. So it was approved, and we ask that you approve this. This will then be in effect until the contract expires in 3 years from now.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay.
So I guess I do have a question. So does this reflect whatever the budget is in terms of how teachers are compensated? This is in line with that. Okay.
And actually, it takes away the uncertainty because Jay would come down to my office almost every day and say, why is this person filling out a timesheet for this? What part is the job responsibility and what part is the timesheet? And that's where we had problems. You know, if you're a part-time teacher, how many staff meetings are you supposed to come to? Now we've decided they should all come to every staff meeting because staff meetings are important. We have professional development there. Mm-hmm. So the results of it really took out the uncertainty in the budget as far as part-time teachers and what they should do timesheets for and what they don't.
So it formalizes the process.
It formalizes the process, but it also now gets them to certain professional development things that were not responsibilities in the past.
So when you say do a timesheet for it, does that mean supplemental income so they have
Yes.
salary and then they
Yes.
get additional? I see. Okay. And so were they the things that they're now in here? Those were things that they were getting
They were getting compensated for on timesheets.
Okay.
Now there's a certain amount that they get. For instance, I think they're now responsible for coming to all staff meetings and they're getting paid for one extra day. So we added up all the hours. It's not hour for hour, but they're getting compensated and now they're responsible for being at all of them.
Right. Okay.
And there's no more uncertainty. Are they going to go to the faculty meeting? Are they going to fill in a timesheet? It's better for budget.
Seems like it would be more efficient for us to be able to calculate their salary rather than
Right.
have to go through timesheets, right?
And that's what this
At
does.
least one benefit, administrative benefit,
That's what this does.
treat them more like salaried employees.
So
It's another benefit. No. I was thinking
Incrementally
out
to the budget is the difference between 0.5 and 0.52446. Is that what we're talking about?
I don't think it's really an amount because we were paid in full anyway.
Okay.
on timesheets.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right, so may I have a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with the LBTC on part-time teachers?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Charlotte, yes. Getchell? Yes. Peg?
Yes.
Hood?
Yes.
Ryder?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Motion is approved. And our third and final action item of the evening is item 8C, ratification of the Canon copier agreement. If you recall, we voted on this last time after we asked that our council review it and give it its blessing, and that has happened. And does anybody have any questions on that?
I hope each of you read through
I was
all
going to
those.
say, that's
I think
maybe
maybe Rich did.
Richard probably
Rich
caught a
did.
few anomalies on
I'd
the.
like to see if it included the toner.
That is
appeared to.
that is a fair question. Well, I
Well,
It does include the
it
a
does.
thorough investigation is
toner.
always
These are
better.
like 12 copier machines.
You found one extra?
I can, 12.
That's the bonus one.
Wow.
Well, here's the thing. Why would we have 12 USB extension cables and 12 MI card V2 HIV proxy? I mean, everything's one except for those two are 12, so I assume we have 12 copiers.
You have an extra?
Replacement parts.
Maybe they came in packages of 12.
Which I think should be enough copiers to handle 2 buildings.
No, it's 2 buildings in the district office.
But the district office is in the building.
Yeah, we have our own copier.
I understand why you had that.
Okay.
So moved.
Yeah, second.
May I have a motion to ratify the final documents for the Canon financing lease as executed in furtherance of the board's prior approval of this transaction at its meeting of August 23rd, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Getchell? Yes. Peg?
Yeah.
For all 12? Hood?
Yes.
Ryder? Yes. Barry?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Charlotte, yes.
Okay, the motion is approved. Done with action items. Item 9, do we have any further public comment for the evening? Not hearing any. Moving on. May I have a motion to adjourn this Board of Education meeting for September 13th, 2016 at 8:02 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are closed. Thanks for coming.